startup. We were founded 3.5 years ago, and we just closed our first financing round, $5 million in a seed stage.
Thank you, Anna. And now Eva Maria Akansson from the University of Zurich, Deputy Head of Innovation. And I will ask you to also briefly introduce SAIEF, our organization, and tell us more about SAIEF and its activities.
Yes, hello, I'm Eva Maria, nice to meet you. I'm working for our innovation hub at the University of Zurich that has existed for about 8 years. So we are supporting researchers and students at the University of Zurich to make that step from research to applications, starting companies, but also finding other ways to translate their innovative ideas. And some years ago, we got together with our colleagues at the other innovation offices at different universities here in Switzerland and realized we have so much to learn from each other. So we, what started as a very informal chat became formalized with SAIEF. It's the, as Samuel said, the Swiss Academic Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum. So far, we have organized 2 forums in central Switzerland. Or not central Switzerland, but at the central point in Switzerland, close to Bern, actually, always in January, to bring all these people together who have exactly the same mandate of making more of the ideas, the know-how that is at the universities that come out and bring benefit to our country. So if you're interested in that, we do have a website that you can learn more about that on. Yeah.
Thank you, Eva Maria. And Jacqueline Rouge, would you like to introduce yourself and your fund activities?
Sure. So I'm an investor based in Lugano. I'm the founding partner of Privilege Ventures. We are an early stage venture capital fund. We invest mainly in Switzerland, but we did some investments in Europe and a couple in Switzerland. In the US. We invest mainly in health tech with quite a big focus now on longevity, really talking about medical longevity, so like precision medicine, preventive, and so on. We invest from pre-seed to Series A. Currently, we are a bit more focused on Series A. And we do have a number of spin-off from university. So the topic is definitely very relevant to us in terms of academic founders, right?
Thank you, Jacqueline. For sure, the topic is relevant and crucial. We think that an academic founder has a particular journey in front of him, of her, and that's why we want to give 3 different perspectives today among the panelists. We will have 30 minutes of discussion, and then we'll take 15 minutes of questions from the audience. I will start with Anne, of course, leveraging your experience as a co-founder, and as we were discussing before, we said that you followed a non-typical journey. Could you explain us why we can define you as a non-typical?
I think that sure. I think the non-typical comes a little bit from the academic background. So often it's spin-offs that we have from the university. You've developed something during your academic career. For us, that was not the case, which is why we're not called a spin-off, but a startup. So we just started, I had an assistant professorship at the University of Zurich, working together with my PhD student. We both co-founded Delta Labs, and we both just wanted to start our own business. That was the starting point. And it's like, yeah, we want to do something, create something on our own. And at first, we basically just started more of as a consultancy. I have a background in marketing and AI. The time we founded was a huge topic. ChatGPT came out, generative AI, so timing was actually quite good. And at first, we just did a lot of workshops, a lot of, kind of small projects with companies, helping them, what are AI use cases. And yeah, from the very start, we were completely bootstrapped, meaning we did never have any investment. And we originally wanted it to stay that way, simply because then we can control and we can do whatever we wanted to do. But all that changed throughout the years, basically because we eventually started developing more software. because we noticed, okay, these are the use cases that marketers are currently interested in. Since last year, we've developed an AI platform that basically simulates customer preferences and behaviors using AI twins. And since we started selling that software, we noticed, okay, we need to scale more. We need to have a larger development team. And this is where we also became interesting to investors. It became an investment case. And on the other hand, we needed to scale faster, which is why we completely switched in the last year.
So bootstrapping was at the core of your activity, and you need to learn how to do that with your...
Yeah, I think maybe as a point, I think for us starting as a bootstrapped startup was actually quite beneficial. I wouldn't do it any other way. Because for us it means that basically, especially going from an academic salary as an assistant professor, which is really nice, and then you go to zero, it puts a lot of pressure on you, and that pressure is actually really beneficial because it means you have to go out. So for us, sales was always on top of the list. You have to network, you have to talk about what you can do. And especially during academic times, I always found that very uncomfortable, showing people, well, here, look what I can do. And this is something you have to do. And I think once you have that pressure, because you do want to have a little bit of a salary, you start doing that. So for us, I think today, for me, that was the best thing that we could have done, because it very early on taught us, okay, sales, we need to do sales. We need to do sales. And for sales, it means you need to understand the market. So you need to talk to customers or potential customers. So you do a lot of networking. And that was a lot of training on the way, which in the end now we have, very, very loyal customers. They're very close to us still, which is extremely helpful also for software development, because we know how they use the software, we know what they want to have next. And all this was basically through the bootstrapping something we learned to do early on. So yeah, I think that was very helpful. But also kind of painful, psychologically, not the easiest time, I can admit. So you do go through rough times when you see your bank account eventually, and shrink down. But this is something you start to eventually, you feel comfortable with it, feel more comfortable with uncertainty as well. And for me, the thought that really helped going through this was, I might not be earning the same salary right now, but I once heard, what's your biggest financial asset? And it's not your salary. Your biggest financial asset is your earnability. And for me, I was thinking, okay, I'm networking so much. I'm, talking to C-level of big corporations. So whatever happens, I do have, my earnability in the future, even if the startup doesn't work, is quite good. And that thought for me was very comforting, even though at the time, salary was not there. So don't think about the salary too much initially, because that can freak you out. But think about what you're building for your future. And that for me was really helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. Facing uncertainty and pressure were at the core of your first months of work. And Eva Maria, don't you think that these particular features are part also of a standard spin-off activity within you? An innovation office, an incubator accelerator? Or what are the main differences with a more standard spin-off journey?
So I think I think we shouldn't standardize too much when it comes to starting up a new company, because every journey is different, and we keep coming back to this also, that there is no this stereotypical founder, but there are so many different phases of being a founder. And I think you've shown that at the core of it is the passion, and that you want to design your own thing and have an impact with what you're doing. I think with many of the cases that we see at the university that are more built on a technology that has been developed at the university, is that they are not ready to face the market yet and build in this organic way as you were able to do, but that they need to first prove, in order to raise any interest from their stakeholders in the market or potential investors, they need to work on their technology to reach a more mature level. So this, even though they see potential, there is this gap between what is interesting and exciting in research and what a customer would potentially be exciting and pay for workshops or whatever. So that's, I think, is the one key thing that makes the journey then different and makes it important that we from the university, together with our stakeholders at InnoSwiss and in foundations, actually go in and help these projects to mature those chances of having impact in the long term. And I think the other point, which is special in your case, is that you were also able to build that more in the interaction with the customer, but I think also from the very beginning you had some market know-how also from your research, and in many cases that we see, this is very poor. You have a very, or either you have none or you have a very juvenile idea of what market actually is and what are the parameters that you need to look at to understand whether your customer, your product hypothesis really will hold. So I think those are the two aspects where we could come in as universities to help those projects also become successful startups and spin-outs.
And does it reduce uncertainty somehow? Do you think that we are lowering as institutions the risk? Are we de-risking the project?
So that's probably then, if we go in with money, some of our universities have the possibility to give a little bit of non-dilutive money to those type of high potential projects, and also with coaching hours, etc. I think we are lowering the risk so that we are making those cases hopefully presentable to investors. But in a way, it's also about lowering the risk for the persons, the founders themselves. You were talking about that, right? Shall I do this? Shall I not? You just maybe finished your PhD and all that you know is the research career. So when to take that decision to actually jump fully on the train, with us stepping in and being this intermediate, we can also lower the risk in the minds of the person so that they are ready.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And what about you, Jacqueline, as an investor? When you come to an academic spin-off or startup, what is your perspective? I mean, it's a risky investment. There is value in it because it comes from an academia, so the core of the tech maybe is stronger. What is your experience?
Yeah. So I would say in general, when you have spin-out or spin-off, whatever, from academia, you have high value on technology. So it's really strong, especially here in Switzerland. We have from university, R&D is really, really strong. So I would say in that set, we are in a very good position. What very often happens is that you have a team of founders that are on the same field and usually on the scientific technological side. So they do not have the marketing side. And that's where the risk sits. So of course, they cannot necessarily do bootstrapping like you, because if you are a medtech company, you know the process, right? R&D, clinical study, and so on. So you need to have money. You need to go out and fundraise. Of course, all the non-dilutive will help you, but at a certain moment, you will need to have investors. So the problem we find too often is when you are so scientific, you really don't have necessarily the mindset of an entrepreneur. And this is not kind of your fault, but if you have been a researcher for many years and sometimes it's your first company and your first job out of academia, you just don't know what it means managing a company. Well, first of all, building a company, right? You incorporate, you do things, someone tells you this and that, and you tend to listen a bit to everyone, then you make a decision, not always the good decision. And then as you grow, you need to talk to investors. And what we find very, very often is that they come to talk to investors as if they are pitching to a professor. And, sometimes you have investors that have maybe a scientific background, but even in that case, what we need to understand at first, to understand if you are relevant for us, is what kind of problem of need your solution or product is trying to solve and how big is the market. I don't need to understand all the single details of the technology. You need to use words that are easily understandable. That makes me, okay, it's something that can scale because, as a VC investor, you need a company that needs to scale. And this is something when you have academic founders that unfortunately very often they don't have. So what we usually suggest, especially when we meet sometimes founders that are not yet founders, right, are working on an idea, but they have not yet incorporated, saying, look maybe for someone with whom you can join forces as a founding team that has maybe either a management experience or, marketing, sales experience, because what you said really resonated in me, we wanted to look at the market, to understand the market, to, get to know our clients. And very often academic founders, they think about the problem, they have these scientific solutions, but hey, did you talk to your potential, clients and say, if this works, and I know it's not yet there, but if this works, would you buy this product? Will I solve a problem for you in your company or whatever? And that I think is really what's lacking. Nevertheless, we continue to invest in spin-off because we do, again, health tech things and so on. So of course you need to have these, but we have been and we have become, I think, over time more selective on when we invest in founding team that we need really to see what's in there, and is this team going to be able to go beyond the R&D? So that's kind of what we see.
I think you assess a lot also of soft skills in the founder. What's the way, for example, you test this attitude, personal attitude of the founder?
Yeah, so soft skills at the very beginning are very important because, at the beginning you have an idea, maybe some patent if it's already there and so on, but you don't really know if it will work. So what you need to see is the founders going to be able to understand how to evolve and develop within their company. And what is important for us as an investor is to understand, is this founder willing to learn? Is he or she coachable, because if someone, you need to have a founder that really believes, right? So we are not here to say what they need to do. But of course, if it's your first company, we need to understand if we tell you something, because we have seen many other companies, going through, are you listening? Are you adjusting? Are you learning down the journey? So that is something very important to us. Definitely the passion is going to be there, because unfortunately at the beginning you are extremely, passionate, and you believe you're going to make it. But we know that it's going to be very long, often very lonely, especially for the CEO, because even if you are 2 or 3 founders, let's not forget that the CEO position is a lonely position, because at a certain moment, even if you have other founders, as you grow, you're going to have to make the decision. You are the leader, right? And sometimes you just need to have, this type of ability to take, this type of stress, of uncomfort, and so on. And also going out from academic, are you really understanding that your salary may not be there, may be delayed because you are the founder? So first, you need to pay maybe your employees your rent, and you as a founder do a step back because you are the entrepreneur. And I think what you said, I really liked it. And I would love to have you speaking with founders. No, honestly, because you really explain what brought you in a journey that is not the typical journey. And I think it would be so beneficial for many young founders curious to hear how you did it, how you managed, how you felt, because sometimes, you know, the typical journey, I think they don't always get it. So, you know, I really liked it.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's remain connected to that. So I can move forward some topics. What would you recommend to new founders? Some lessons you learned and that represent some mistakes they can avoid.
I think, my key message is always you have to start doing. Especially as academics, we like to think things through forever and want to make it perfect. This for me was the biggest learning. Just do it and you'll learn. And then you have to learn quickly. And then you see, okay, this didn't work. I'll try something else. We'll try this. So you have to be more open to that. And as I said, also being more, here is what I do, kind of this, let everybody know what you're doing and then be very, very kind of open about it. And you can, you know, I'm not sure these things. That doesn't sell. So you have to be more confident in the way you present, because in research we present, this is not perfect, and here I have a mistake, and this could be better. That's not how you want to present your product to clients or at a conference. So you have to be more self-confident in that sense. And then the whole journey for us is just do. We tried out so many things that didn't work, but then you learn. Also in customer conversations, and then you learn what they want, you listen in what they want, you listen what the questions are. And also during the investment process, for us, the whole investment process was a learning process. We started with small investors first, and then everybody was kind of like, oh, wow, your sales are really good. And then, you know, it was the investors talking to other investors, and then the investment VCs that we talked to just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And for us, the whole process, we learned, you know, what are the typical questions they're asking? So how should I prepare for this? We never had a typical pitch deck, and here I go, I tell you my, 10 slides. We always kind of were very true to ourselves. We were very happy with what we built. But in that sense, I think all the customer conversations we had before were really helpful, because whatever questions investors were throwing at us, we could answer. We were like, we talked to the, you know, this and that client, this is what they want, and we're sure of it. Or we could tell them pricing for us was a key point that came up during the investment process. We were told our prices are too low. I think also a problem with academics, I have a software, so I start rather, you know, I have my foot in the door. So a key issue that came up very often is, can we actually expand and increase our pricing with customers, etc. We were confident that we could. So eventually we talked to our customers again. Do you want to have more use cases? Do we want to up volume? And we actually increased most of the customers that we already had within a few months, showed that to the investors, and then that discussion was gone. So it's kind of, you have to be confident in your decisions. And when you talk to your customer and give that as a feedback to investors, it's good. But for us, the whole process is talking to the market. Always talk to people, and you will learn so much. And this is what you can use in the investment process. This is what you can use how you run your business, where the product goes next. So for us, this is the key. And you just do it. You just do it, and then you learn.
And when real investors enter your company, what changed? You mentioned bootstrapping, uncertainty, and
it changed quite a bit.
Structure was there with milestone and reporting.
So the investment for us, we just closed around 2 months ago, so it's very new.
So she doesn't know yet.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're just still in the process of learning what that all means. Of course, you have more reportings and more meetings coming up. All that changed. At the moment, we're very busy just, hiring people, because you hire so many people at once. And then, we just realize, okay, team structure, the way we organize, this needs to change, because it makes a difference if you're below 10 people and all of a sudden you're 20 people, and all that needs to be organized differently. And then at the moment, we're learning a lot about HR, which is something I didn't expect. There's so many people that come up, I have this problem, and you learn a lot about team dynamics. And then it helps to know a little bit about psychology. Again, it's very similar to customers. You listen in. What are people trying to tell you? How can you, what are their, strengths? How can you best put them into place in your company? Where are weaknesses? And try to figure out where to put them. So this is at the moment where we're at, trying to figure out our team mainly. and scaling everything, and knowing also we're hiring a lot of researchers as salespeople. It's actually something that Palantir first did with forward deployed developers. We kind of adapted that sales model, and we're now hiring forward deployed scientists. So we have people with a PhD background coming in as salespeople because we found that if we do sales talks, it's very beneficial when you can talk about statistics and how this new methodology works. But then again, now with our researchers, we had a talk this morning, they are not used to doing sales. So basically, we now have to get them into the same process that we started doing the last years. You know, be more outspoken about this, become a thought leader on these topics, etc. And how do you account expansion, all that. Yeah, but it's an interesting journey. So I would definitely recommend doing it. It's an adventure. It's kind of a roller coaster. One week it's, you know, everything's great. Next week, everything's bad. You have to love that. But, you know, once you notice, you know, everybody will have downs, and you have in other areas as well. Once you have realized, okay, I can go through this, and it'll be fine, that really helps you. And you're like, okay, you know, we will handle this, or this is something we can get through. And for us, it's more about, you know, we have a huge opportunity to build something ourselves, which is great. Yeah, that for me is very rewarding. So however stressful it gets, it's, you know, you're building your own thing. That in itself is so rewarding. Money couldn't buy for it, so yeah.
Thank you. I would like to expand a little bit another topic which is relevant with you, Jacqueline. You run your own due diligence when you decide where to invest. Is it true that also a startup should run its own due diligence on a fund to find the right match, the right partner? And what are your suggestions on this topic to new founders?
Definitely. So that's what we say very, very often to founders, you know, ask questions right away at the first meeting. So usually when a founder goes, even here in Bern, you know, you have all these one-to-one meeting and so on. So they go and they have 15 minutes and they start pitching and say everything, and they know nothing about, you know, who they have. So usually what I say, the first meeting, try to ask as many questions as you can to the investor, because first of all, before investing time on saying what you are doing, try to see if this investor, first of all, is the right investor for you, in the sense of, do they invest in your sector, in your stage? Do they have money to deploy? Where the fund life stands, right? Are still at the beginning of the fund, at the end of the fund, because there are a number of mechanics that you need to understand in order to avoid that the fund will try to push for an exit earlier, and maybe it's not a good exit and put too much pressure. So that's the first part. And then, of course, do what we do, right? Do referral calls. Ask other founders. Among founders, there is a lot of you know, empathy and willingness to help each other. So try to, first of all, reach out to any founders that you know have been backed by that fund and ask, how was the journey? Are they helpful? Are they what they say they do, or how is it? How did they manage conflict within your company? If the person in the fund sits on the board, how are they useful? How are they adding value? Do they know about governance and so on? Do they speak out? Do they open the network? All the different things. Of course, I would recommend to do a few referral calls, because of course, you know, one person, I always say you will not be liked by everyone, and that's totally fine. But then, you know, if you have 4 or 5, then you see what it is. And sometimes you are not liked because maybe you just had a bad period with that founder and you had to take on maybe some, you know, tough conversation, and maybe the feedback from that founder is not going to be good. So do a bit that, but also with other in the ecosystem. So not only founders, maybe other co-investors, you know, how they are. Do they have a network of investors? How they help you down the road to find maybe other co-investors, and so on and so forth. So definitely the due diligence is super important. And I think too many founders do not do this. And then they have investors in their cap table that become a real problem down the road. Because I always say, once you have an investor in your cap table, it's, well, it's not the right word, but it's more important than the person you're going to marry, in the sense that if you get married as one person, and it's going to be already disruptive if you need to divorce. But if you have an investor and he's the wrong investor, even if he holds only 0.5% on your cap table and you need to change your shareholder agreement, you're going to need his signature. There is nothing you can do. So be very, very careful on who you are bringing in. And then, of course, the other point is money, yes, but what else can they bring? Because very often, especially at the beginning, you just want the money. And I always say, when founders sees the dollar signs, they're like, yes, we have it. Wait, think, is this the money I want? And honestly, I tell founders, if this investor has a bad reputation, even if it's the only investor that's going to give you the money to survive and go to the next phase, really think if you want to get married with this one, or just leave it and let your startup and your dream go, because it can be a nightmare.
Yeah, money is not everything.
So money is not everything. Yeah. So really alignment of vision, right? And be very honest when you speak to each other, right? What's your expectation? What you do? What you expect from a startup? What type of multiples and so on? I think it's super important.
Thank you, Jacqueline. And Eva Maria, we jumped in the SAIEF adventure because we wanted to create trust, to nurture an ecosystem, to create connections among professionals in institutions. We share best practices in our 2 last events, and you led a nice workshop on the best practices in non-dilutive funding, supporting startups. Would you like to share with us some best practices or something you think is valuable in supporting the first phase of academic startup?
Yeah, sure. I'm not going to be too long on that one, but I shared already before the need for having such a bridge funding. And I had the opportunity to talk to Isabel Casado from EPFL at our last SAIEF meeting. We were talking about how they've been doing it there. They're actually celebrating 20 years of the innovation grant. At the University of Zurich, we have now 8 years of experience of our entrepreneur fellowship, which is this in the range of 100,000 grant that we can give for building proof of concept and more data on your technology in order to take the next step. And I think what we kind of came to a conclusion about from both our ecosystems of different maturity is that, and it resonates a bit with what you were saying, that the dollar sign, yes, but in the end, when we look back on the project and what they've actually taken away from this kind of incubation at the university, the money is just a small part. There are other ways to get to money, to non-dilutive money. Actually, in Switzerland, somebody told me if you have a good technology, you can get up to $500,000 in non-dilutive money as a university spin-out. You're in a very luxurious situation. And even more, it's important the possibility for them to immerse themselves in another environment with other founders to actually develop this other type of mindset and learning those skills to talk to customers, etc. So that was one of the points. And I think it's also good news for those smaller universities that might not have the possibility to give money to their projects with high potential, to just use the resources that are here in Switzerland and just work more with manpower, bring in experts there. So we get calls every day. There are so many experts that wants to come and work with us. It's a huge interest to work with startups and help them. So I think this is actually really the value that we could bring. So and then in the end, you have to, we also concluded that there is not like a one fits all, but it depends on your ecosystem and how mature your ecosystem is and how many alumni founders that you have that actually the people can start talking among each other. At some point, maybe we'll be obsolete and we don't can go and look for another job. But yeah, so that was a really, really nice session. We are not there yet, so we will continue providing the proof of concept grants. Yeah.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
I think we have 10 minutes more for questions from the audience. So I've got a mic over here. If anybody of you have some questions.
Yay. Very brave.
Yeah.
The first one is
Yes.
usually right. Ice breaking.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. Really learned a lot. I'm wondering, like for VC, when you do the due diligence, what kind of like aspect you are looking at for the startup? Like, what are you checking for?
Yeah. So first of all, the first check is, of course, fitting with the current investment strategy. That's kind of an easy one that filters pretty quickly, right? Stage, sectors, and geography, and so on. Then we have different things. So if an investment is really early, like pre-seed, seed, certainly the founding team is kind of the most important one, because we know we're going to have to work together for the next 10 years or so. So there is a need of liking each other. So it's not only about the technology, but really kind of, okay, do I want to be on a room, on a board or whatever, and also in moment where it's not going to be easy. So definitely this is important, but also the skills of the founders, right? Background and so on. Then, of course, what type of problem are you solving, and if your solution is really needed in the market. So again, what she said, right? You can have, I've heard sometimes things super nice, but at the end there is not really a market, right? So is there a market and a need? And then for VC investors, it's really important how you're going to scale and where is the exit potential. So who is going to buy the company and when? So that's very important. And what type of multiples? Because as you know, we also need to fundraise and we need to return money to our investors. So we need to have a certain number of multiples in our startup. So we have all kind of those criteria that we need to check. And then, of course, if all this is okay, then we deep dive more on the technical due diligence. So if it's, like if there is a patent, is there everything was done? Is it protected? Yes, no, who are the competition, and so on. You're welcome.
Can you pass the mic? Thank you.
For the recording. Yeah.
Yep, you think? Okay, then that works. It was actually more to you about what you mentioned, like the things that you don't know would be an interesting thing. You obviously have a program that works with people that come from university and then they want to launch a company, and you did exactly that. So one question would be, for example, now that you raise a Series A and there's going to be funding, and then there's a sort of things that you have to do after. Like now you're going to get into boards and reporting and all these things. It was more, where do you get the information to prepare yourself for what's going to come after? Are you talking with somebody that is actually going to tell you, this is what's going to happen? Or are you just like, surprise?
You mean now after the investment round, how we set up everything?
Yeah, more like if you already had, even while you were doing the investment round, did anybody approach you to tell you these are things that are going to happen, you should probably be prepared for this?
Yeah. So what we used, and that was really helpful. So I have, again, our network. So I have a good network of friends. Originally, I did business administration. So, a lot of my friends are now in the financial area. So we asked again, asked for people that could mentor us, could help us, could look at our deck, could look at how we present things, and how that process should work, and how to set it up, and how to organize everything. For the investors, like you said, we did also screen them really well, so which investors we wanted. The more you talk to investors, you notice there's big differences also the kind of questions they will ask. And how quickly they respond. For us, it was very important that they're very responsive to kind of show, they're really interested in us, or if it takes weeks until they, get back. So that was not a good sign. So these are also signals that we were looking out for. And in the end, the investors that we now basically also chose from our side are ones that actually, we get HR support, we get tech support, and everything. So we get a lot of structure that's helping us scale. And for us, this was important. It's a big investor that can do follow-ons, which is also important for us for the next investment round. So these were things that we were paying attention to. But eventually, this is where you want to get to have enough event investors to choose from, right? So, and again, this comes back to sales. If your numbers are really good, eventually, there's a lot of investors that will have the interest. They talk to each other, and then for us, the investors, the first investor we had in, they did lots of outreach to other investors. So we were like, okay, even though you have a very, very small ticket, we want you on board because this is very helpful. And they were so excited about the vision and everything. And then we got a lead investor who actually wanted to do the whole round, but we still said, no, we want the other investor included. But we wanted to have the big VC, to have the ability to do follow-ons. And now they have, this whole structure that helps us scale. And for us, this was important because, we don't have any knowledge there, so they help us in that sense. They also help us with customers. So a lot of new customers that we got in are actually leads from our investors. So all this is extremely helpful. Yeah.
Extending the question actually to you, like from the program that you run for University of Zurich, do you have any specific module that actually can help the companies that go through this, like the founders that you help into this, for example, like how to orientate their first fundraise, which investors to reach or not reach, even if they should fundraise at all, which is another thing that we find with, I do some mentoring with ETH once.
Yeah.
And that part about maybe you don't actually need funding or you shouldn't go for VC funding. This is not the type of research that you've done. Do you do anything like that internally also?
So most of our programs are very early stage, even like it's really like at the interface to the lab and identifying whether there is a market and you should go this direction. So we don't have too much activities in this area yet. I would say that the difference is that you had your contacts because I suppose you are a little bit more also senior than some of the projects that we are, or the founders that we are advising. And what we can provide are then those contacts, which is like, many of the people that are sitting in our classes, for them it's like completely new land, and they have no friends that they could reach out to. So I think that's the difference, and that's where we can play a role.
But maybe I can add one more point. For us, it's important during the whole process, you will get tons of advice. And I agree that learnability is important, but another thing that is important is that you know what is right for your company, because you know your company best. And you will hear so many things from people that, they just listen in 30 minutes and they will tell you something. Take that in, but you decide if it's really important and if it really matters for your business. For us, this can also be very confusing because you have tons of people, you have to do it this way and this way. Oh no, this is wrong and da-da-da-da. And then you go and like, no, actually, this is working. I want to do it this way. So you do take advice, you do listen, but in the end, you always decide if it really makes sense for your business. I think this is extremely important because you get so much advice.
Yes.
So,
That's a golden suggestion.
Yeah.
Keep the strategy internally and look for what you need outside.
Yeah.
So I think we have time for the last question, 2 minutes. Mauro, right?
Yes. And thanks a lot for all your speech. And I'm just curious about your, let's say, my question would be, how important is it to be resilient in the difficult moment? And I'm curious to know, what are you doing in order to help yourself to be resilient?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's extremely important because you will go through some really tough times, when employees, there's tons of problems, this doesn't work out, you don't close that sale. We had one big moment where we actually thought we already had our lead investor. We had the term sheet, and then, there was so much going on and the whole thing just burst. And we had the exclusivity clause or something, so we couldn't talk to other investors, and we had to start the whole process again. We had shifted our, pricing model where it's more for ARR for investors, not bootstrap, where we had high setup fees. So that was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh. I think most people at that moment would say, okay, fuck it, I'll leave it, whatever. And for me, the most important part is actually my co-founder. We are working really, really well together. So we have a good understanding of somebody. We can push each other when we notice, okay, now she's having a downtime. I need to push her through. And we have moments, she gives me a call and she's like, oh, Anne, I cannot do it. I cannot do it. And I was like, yeah, you can. So you kind of have to have that mentality as a co-founder team, which is really, really helpful. And we have found, we do go on dog walks together, something very offline, kind of, where we step back from things and, have more strategy discussion. Where do we want to go? Things like that. And for me, she is, you say it's like a marriage with the investor. With your co-founder, it's more than a marriage. I think we are so much in contact right now. Her husband is probably jealous because we're in the evening, in the morning, first the WhatsApp, whatever, is with my co-founder. And for me, this is the most important part, that you get along really well, and that can help you push through these things. And in the end, it's all about learning. Once you realize, okay, we've managed this, you get more confidence that whatever happens, you can also go through this again. So the more often you fail and you go through, the more confident you become, and this is your resilience. The more often okay, I can do this, I can handle this, this I can also handle. And I think this is really helpful. And for me, one more point, mindset. So regarding mindset, I still think as a startup, for me, this is a learning opportunity. What I'm getting is a learning opportunity. I can try out so many cool things and learn quickly and grow quickly. So even if I fail, it means I have learned. So it's more about embracing that failure, because then you will learn and you will grow even more. And that also helps you embrace that failure, and that makes you a lot more resilient, where you do not fear it, you actually embrace it. And then you learn that you can do so much more. And for me, this is, really, really helpful.
Thank you to our great speakers for your contribution, and to the audience for your time and patience. And thank you to the organizers, Alexandra and Dominique, for granting us this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.